Okay, guys, here's another movie idea, and this one I also brought up before, and it's the Tekken movie, or if it doesn't turn well to be a movie and if it deserves to be more of a TV show, then that's what it is. It's either a movie or a show, whichever one you guys prefer. So here we go. Once again, it's a list on a Google Doc. So here we go. Number one, have the movies be a trilogy with the first movie focusing on the first three games. And I already mentioned it in my last movie idea video that the first half of the movie would be on the first two games and the second half on the third game. And then the second movie, number two, takes place on the fourth and fifth tournaments, or in this case, the fourth and fifth games. And the third and the last movie takes place during the sixth, seventh, and eighth tournaments. We'll have to wait and see how Tekken 8 the game turns out before I start writing the actual movies. Number three, Heihachi will be more sympathetic and protective compared to the games because you know Heihachi is a little bit more evil, but I think they should have made him a little bit more sympathetic and more justifiable as a villain, but then becomes like a anti-hero. And number four, Kazuya becomes evil immediately in the first tournament, like at the end of the first tournament, because he was more heroic in the beginning. He was originally seen as the main protagonist, but no, he becomes evil, especially in the second game. And then Kazuya has a son named Jin, and Jin is the one who is the real protagonist. He's the real main star of the entire franchise, not Kazuya. One thing that I wanted to talk about before we continue is that I really am happy that Kazuya is in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but in my opinion, I think Jin should have been the one, or at least his Echo clone fighter, because since Jin and Kazuya are both related, and the fact that they both have the devil in them both, and the fact that they fight similarly, why couldn't Jin be in the game as well in addition to Kazuya? It's not fair. Damn you, Sakurai, and damn you, Nintendo, for not giving Tekken enough love in freaking Smash Brothers, as well as Nintendo in general, since there's only just a couple of Tekken games on Nintendo systems. A Game Boy Advance copy of just Tekken Advance, and of course Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on the Wii U. That's it. Oh, and of course that Tekken Blood Rebellion, whatever it's called, on the 3DS. Other than that, not enough love for Nintendo. Anyway, so number five, Jin is a lot more scared of turning into a devil compared to his dad. Makes sense. It would make much more reasonable sense compared to the games where he's a lot more concerned or preparing for it or just expects it not to happen or something. Number six, June, Kazuya's girlfriend, wife, and of course Jin's mom, is once again going to remain missing before the third tournament because we still don't know what happened to June after the second game. Now, if this was a TV show at number 7, each season will be based on each game slash tournament, as well as the tag games or the non canon games. At number 8, if it was a show, each episode would focus on every single character in their respective tournament slash games. So that way, every character gets enough love, not just the Mishimas. And speaking of the Mishimas, at number 9, the movies mainly focus on the Mishimas slash Kazamas. Number 10, both Jinpachi and Kazumi, Jinpachi is Heihachi's dad and Kazumi is his dead wife, they won't be shown slash introduced or even mentioned in the first movie and or TV shows early seasons until they appear in their respective tournaments like they did in the game. So that means in the fifth tournament, that's when Jinpachi shows up. And Kazumi won't show up until the seventh game or tournament, whatever. And at number 11, I was hoping that the movies would be released by Sony or Columbia Pictures, and it would also be produced by PlayStation Productions, even though it's technically Namco that made Tekken and not PlayStation themselves. But to me, as much as I love Nintendo and as much as I have to respect Xbox and Microsoft, Tekken will always be PlayStation. Like, when it comes to that. Hell, Jin Kazama is considered a freaking mascot for PlayStation, right? Come on. Alright, and at number 12, all the characters will be racially diverse and properly casted, unlike the 2009 movie where a lot of them were whitewashed or half white, or not what they represented at all, really. Yeah. The 2009 Tekken movie was complete freaking dog crap, just like the 2014 Annie movie. I'm really glad I never got to watch it, but I know it's crap. I know it is. Number 13, Jin and Ling Xiaoyu will be in a romantic relationship in the movie slash TV show because they have such cute chemistry. Ling Xiaoyu was such a ditzy but also tough girl that always falls for Jin, and I was hoping that they can finally be together in the movie slash show. At number 14, Anna and Nina Williams, the two fighting sisters that hate each other, are Irish American instead of just Irish in the games, because they always talk in Irish American accents and not actual Irish. Come on, voice actors. Can't you at least try to sound more natural Irish instead of the stereotypical leprechaun Irish accent? No. Anyway, number 15, both King, the original King, and the original Kuma are both shown passing their torches to their successors right before the third tournament. Because if you don't know, the original King died, and so did the original Kuma. So once when you play Tekken 3, you think it'd be the same characters as the previous games, but no, King and Kuma were both passed down to newer King and Kuma, of course. Alright, and at number 16, Beck Dosan, the Taekwondo fighter, is shown during the events of the third tournament slash game training Hwarang, or Hwarang, his Taekwondo, because Hwarang and Beck are student and teacher, of course. And as for Beck himself, he gets ambushed by Ogre, but survives, which explains why he wasn't in the third and fourth games. In the movies and TV shows, of course. And number 17, just like in the original game's backstory, King 1, the original King, gets killed by Ogre, and this time he didn't have his Jaguar mask on, but his face is still never shown, so the original King still doesn't have his face revealed. But at number 19, Armor King, the original Armor King, on the other hand, actually does get killed, and actually has his face shown, and is killed by Craig Marduk in the beginning of the fourth game, but he was unaware of the bar fight because he was too drunk. So as a result, Craig Marduk just killed him without even noticing. That's also a big bad spoiler for those of you all who haven't played any of the Tekken games, of course. Number 20, Paul Phoenix, the toughest in the universe, of course, gradually gets less serious with each tournament. He takes it less seriously after always not winning and constantly fighting both Kumas, the original Kuma in the first two games and the second Kuma onwards, and the fact that he was so close during the third tournament. He thought he killed Ogre, but no, he didn't. He didn't finish him off because he turned into True Ogre. Anyway, okay, back to the list of ideas, of course. Number 21, martial law and forest law have a much more closer father-son relationship, even during the events of the first tournament when forest law was just a kid. At number 22, forest law once again only appears in the third tournament, but supports his dad, martial law, in each tournament onwards, and just supports him through and through. Number 23, when Ogre turns into True Ogre, it once again sounds like a bear. Because I always thought True Ogre fit perfectly sounded like a bear when it comes to playing or fighting against him in the third game. And by the way, Tekken 3 is one of my favorite games, by the way. It really is. Number 24, Lee Chaolan speaks Chinese, Japanese, and English fluently, unlike the games where he only speaks Japanese and then he only speaks English when he's Violet. Yeah. And speaking of Lee once again, number 25, Lee actually appears in the third tournament, unlike the games, where he was just to capture Ogre before Heihachi does, as well as having a rivalry with Brian Fury, because I always thought that Lee should have had a rivalry with at least one new character, and I think Brian Fury would be a good choice, which could mean also that Lee was never expelled in the tournament in the first place. He was never expelled by the Mishima Zaibatsu. And number 26, the Mishima Zaibatsu will be a lot more like what it was in the games, unlike the 2009 adaptation, and will be a lot more prominently shown and featured throughout the movie/show. Number 27, Nina once again has her son, Steve Fox, and unlike the games where Anna never met Steve or was unaware of Nina having a son, she immediately finds out this time around that she's now an auntie. Anna's now an aunt. And Steve still doesn't like her. And they never speak of, them being related ever again. Number 28, both Eddie and Christy will be Afro-Brazilian American and speak both Portuguese and English fluently this time around, because in the original games at first, they both spoke English fluently, but then later, by the time when Tekken Tag 2 came out, they only spoke Portuguese. So I think it would be great if they spoke both languages fluently by having them be American, but still being Afro-Brazilian, which means they're black and Brazilian, of course. Because, they have to understand that if they're going to speak English perfectly, they have to be American at some point, at least. But still have their racial, ethnical backgrounds from their blood and everything. Anyway, number 29, Heihachi only kills Kazuya to protect him and keeping the rest of his family safe. And no, Kazuya won't die right away, no. But he still, of course, dies in the second game where he gets thrown into a volcano once again, but Heihachi feels bad about it because he hates doing this to his own son. Why does he have to be possessed by the devil gene? Why? Or something. And then, of course, in Japanese, of course. Number 30, unlike the other games and other adaptations where Heihachi intentionally throws Kazuya off a cliff as a child, Heihachi accidentally threw young Kazuya off a cliff after playing roughly, like a sparring session, teaching Mishima-style karate. And obviously, he forgot to apologize after Kazuya survived. And he still feels bad about it, and Kazuya, on the other hand, just couldn't hold any more grudges against his own dad, even though his dad feels bad about it. At least in my story, of course. Number 31, unlike the third game where Jin turns into a devil after finishing Ogre and getting shot by the Tekken 4 soldiers and Heihachi himself, the new ending will be more like Heihachi's ending where Jin passes out after killing Ogre and Heihachi throws him into the Grand Canyon, but while he falls, he turns into a devil, flies away, and attacks the freaking helicopter, and, the whole crew and Heihachi end up getting parachutes. And of course, he says, "What have I done? First my son, and now my grandson, too." And Devil Jin, of course, flies away in the daylight of the Grand Canyon. That's how the third act of the first movie would end, or third season of the show. Number 32, Anna continues to be more flirtatious and seductive in the movie/TV show. Number 33, Martial Law and King 2 are more like underdogs compared to other fighters this time around. Number 34, the blonde Lily is a lot more of a rags to riches type girl instead of a typical rich girl in the movies in TV show, because I think it would be more reasonable for her to be a rags to riches. A lot more interesting compared to just being a rich girl with no explanation besides her parents being rich. Number 35, Elisa speaks Russian instead of Japanese because for some reason she sounds more Japanese yet she doesn't look Japanese in the games. So I think it would be better if she actually did speak Russian. Number 36, Lars will be just another adopted son of Heihachi from Sweden, just like how Lee was adopted from China. But instead of being an illegitimate son who speaks just Japanese, he's actually Swedish and speaks both languages fluently. But he speaks way more Swedish than Japanese, of course. There we go. Because, come on, you gotta have more languages and to embrace other backgrounds instead of just Japanese. Come on. I respect the Japanese, but when it comes to racial diversity in movies, you gotta show the other languages too, not just English and Japanese. Anyway, number 37, Jinpachi and Jin, the grandson, or my great-grandson and great-grandfather, will have a lot more interaction finding about each other during the events of the 5th tournament. Number 38, just to add some comic relief, both Mokujin and Combat will have a comedic rivalry, mimicking each other that they're both robotic copycats of other characters. Number 39, Heihachi officially retires rather than dying during the 7th tournament and surrenders to Kazuya, because Heihachi was finally killed in the 7th game. But who knows if he'll survive or not, because there's some fans who think that he survived and will return in the 8th game. I don't know. And if he doesn't, I think the best way for him to actually be gone will be retiring and surrendering to his own son, like he finally gives up and retires. That's how it would have been if I wrote it. Number 40, Jin will have a lot more interaction with his family members, including Asuka, who turns out to be his cousin. And Asuka's father is Jun's oldest brother and the only surviving sibling left before Feng Wei killed him. Because in the game, in Tekken 5, Feng Wei killed Asuka's father. And Feng Wei's master was Asuka's father. And we still don't know in the games whether or not what kind of relative our Jin and Asuka Kazama are. They have the same last name, they are related, but we don't know what kind of relatives they are. But I think it would be more reasonable if they were cousins. And as for her dad, being related to Jun would make perfect sense. And having him be her oldest brother would make perfect sense. And Jun might be the baby of the Kazama family or something before Jin and Asuka were born. And then at number 41, similar to Anna, Zafina, the character from the 6th game, will be flirtatious around her opponents/enemies, like where she poisonous, like a femme fatale. There we go. Anna and Zafina will be the femme fatales, the sexy bad guys or something, I don't know. And finally, at number 42, Lily learned various martial arts, mainly MMA, as she became rich, rather than just learning vague, quote-unquote, street fighting type moves in the games, because the one thing I didn't like about Lily is that her fighting style is so vague. Like, what kind of moves are they? They didn't describe, like, what kind of fighting style she has like all the other characters did. It's just street fighting. Like, come on, what the heck is street fighting? Is it MMA? Is it karate? Is it other martial arts? I don't know. So, it'd make perfect sense if she learned actual martial arts and MMA. MMA in general, instead of just quote-unquote street fighting. And plus, since she's rich, she would pay for multiple, like, trainers to help her fight real good in the games. Or in this case, in the movie slash TV show. So that's all I got for my Tekken movies. And don't worry, my next video will be another video game movie adaptation. And this one's from an RPG that I grew up playing. So stay tuned for that, folks. Remember to comment and subscribe and stay tuned for more new videos. So peace out and rock on.